My name is Jane, and at 30, I had settled into a comfortable routine. My days were a blend of work at a company where I was an office employee, and evenings were for unwinding, often at my favorite local cafe. What no one knew was the small detail omitted from my business card, but I'll tell you about it later. That particular day, I pushed open the door to the cafe, the familiar scent of roasted coffee beans and the soft undertones of jazz enveloping me. As I walked towards the counter, lost in thought about a new project, I collided with someone. "Oops. I'm so sorry," I blurted out, stepping back. The stranger, a man with an easy smile and an approachable demeanor, chuckled. "No harm done. I should have been more careful. I'm Alex." "Jane," I replied, returning his smile. There was an ease in the conversation that followed, a natural flow that felt refreshing. We decided to sit down with our coffees, finding a quiet corner. "So, Jane, do you come here often?" Alex asked, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Yeah, it's my escape from the daily grind. A little oasis of peace," I said, taking a sip of my coffee. Alex nodded. "I get that. It's important to find those little escapes. What do you do that requires such escapes?" I hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Oh, just office work, you know. Lots of numbers and paperwork." I was always careful about revealing too much. He seemed to understand, not prying further. "I can imagine. I work in marketing myself. It's all about creative chaos, but sometimes you just need a break from even that." We talked more about our lives, his passion for marketing, my love for jazz, and our shared appreciation for good coffee. The conversation was effortless, filled with laughter and insights. As the cafe began to clear out, signaling the end of our impromptu meeting, Alex looked at me, a hint of hesitation in his eyes. "Jane, I've really enjoyed talking with you. Would you be interested in meeting up again, maybe for dinner next time?" he asked, an earnest look on his face. I felt a flutter of excitement. "I'd like that, Alex. It's been great chatting with you." We exchanged numbers, and as I walked back to my car, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. It was just a casual meeting, but something about Alex was different. He had a genuineness that was rare, and I found myself looking forward to seeing him again. The weeks following my fateful meeting with Alex were a whirlwind of dates and deep conversations. We were like two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly. However, one piece of the puzzle remained conspicuously missing: his family. It was a topic Alex artfully dodged each time I brought it up. But that evening, as we strolled through the local park, the autumn leaves crunching under our feet, I decided to delve deeper. "Alex, I've noticed you never talk about your parents. Is everything okay?" I asked gently, looking over at him. He let out a sigh, a sign that the topic was a heavy one. "Yeah, everything's fine. It's just, my parents are a bit difficult." "Difficult how?" I probed, sensing his discomfort. He looked away, focusing on the path ahead. They're snobs, to put it bluntly. They own a small business and have this mindset where they only mingle with people who match their wealth and status." I was taken aback, but curious. "So, they're elitists?" "Exactly," he replied, a tinge of bitterness in his voice. "They judge people based on their income, their job title. It's why I've been hesitant to introduce you to them." I stopped walking, turning to face him. "Alex, are you worried they won't accept me because of my job?" He met my gaze, his eyes filled with a mix of apology and concern. "Jane, you're amazing, and I love that about you. But my parents have this archaic belief that I should be with someone from a certain socioeconomic class. I just don't want them to hurt you with their words." I took his hand in mine, offering a reassuring squeeze. "Alex, I'm not afraid of your parents. I've dealt with all sorts of people in my life. Trust me, I can handle them." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I just hate the thought of them judging you." You're so much more than what they deem worthy. I laughed lightly. Let them think what they want. I'm confident in who I am. Besides, it's you I care about, not their approval. We resumed our walk, the conversation shifting to lighter topics. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but wonder about the eventual meeting with his parents. What would they make of me, an office employee, in their eyes? As the week went on, Alex finally agreed to take me to meet them. I could tell he was nervous, but I assured him it would be fine. It's just dinner, what's the worst that can happen? I joked, trying to lighten the mood. He gave a half smile, clearly not convinced. You haven't met my mother. The day of the meeting arrived. I dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that was professional yet understated. As Alex picked me up, he kept glancing over at me, as if trying to gauge my mood. You look great, he said, attempting a smile. Thanks. I'm ready for this, I replied, though a small knot of anxiety had formed in my stomach. The drive to Alex's parents' house was filled with a tense silence. Despite his repeated warnings about their elitist attitudes, I had assured him I could handle whatever was thrown my way. But nothing could have truly prepared me for the opulence that greeted us as we pulled into the driveway of a mansion that could easily have been mistaken for a small palace. As we walked up to the grand entrance, Alex muttered under his breath, "Just remember, they're all about appearances." The door swung open, and we were ushered into a living room that was a spectacle of extravagance. Every surface gleamed with gold, the furniture was lavish, and the air smelled faintly of expensive perfume. Alex's parents, seated like royalty on their plush sofas, barely glanced up as we entered. "Mother, father, this is Jane," Alex introduced me, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. His mother, draped in what looked like the entire contents of a jewelry store, gave me a cursory nod. "So, you're the young woman Alex has been seeing. And what is it that you do, dear?" Her tone was polite, but her eyes were sharp, evaluating. I handed her my business card, trying to keep the atmosphere light. "I work as an office employee at a promising company. It keeps me busy." She took the card, barely giving it a glance, before laying it aside. "An office employee, I see. And your earnings, are they substantial?" Alex jumped in, trying to steer the conversation away. "Mom, Jane's doing really well for herself. She's very dedicated to her work." His father, who had been silently observing until then, chimed in with a voice that carried a note of condescension. "Alex, we hoped you'd find someone more akin to our social circle. A young lady of certain means and standing." I felt a twinge of irritation but masked it with a smile. I believe in making my own way in the world. It's not about how much you earn, but how you earn it, right? Alex's mother let out a small, patronizing laugh. "Idealistic, but the world doesn't always work that way, dear. In our circles, status and connections matter." The conversation was spiraling into an uncomfortable territory. Alex was visibly tense, his hands clenched into fists at his side. His father leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "Tell me, Jane, with your modest occupation, how do you plan to fit into our lifestyle? Into Alex's future?" Before I could respond, Alex interjected, his voice firm. "Jane fits perfectly into my future, that's all that matters. Her job doesn't define her." His mother scoffed, her gaze cold. "Alex, be realistic. We want the best for you, and this girl, well, she's hardly the best, is she?" The dinner with Alex's parents, post the awkward introduction, was shaping up to be an ordeal. The dining room was as opulent as the rest of the house, and the tension was palpable as we sat down to eat. I could feel the judgmental gaze of Alex's mother boring into me. "So, Jane, tell us about your family. Are they office clerks too?" Alex's father inquired, his tone laced with a not-so-subtle insinuation. I kept my composure, replying politely, "My parents are retired now. They've always believed in a simple, honest living." His mother tittered, exchanging a look with her husband. simple and honest, how quaint. But we were hoping Alex would marry into a more influential family. Alex, who had been growing increasingly uncomfortable, finally spoke up. Mom, Dad, I don't see why any of this matters. Jane is an amazing person. That's what counts. His mother's response was immediate and sharp. It matters, Alex. You can't just bring home anyone. There are standards. The conversation quickly escalated as Alex's parents began to openly question my suitability for their son. They made snide remarks about my job, my income, and my background. I tried to steer the conversation to more neutral topics, but Alex's mother was relentless. I just don't understand, Alex. With your background, you could have had your pick of eligible young women. Why settle for an office employee? Feeling a mix of anger and humiliation, I finally spoke up. I may not come from wealth, but I value hard work and integrity. Isn't that important? Alex's father scoffed. In our world, those are secondary. It's about maintaining a certain standard, a legacy. Alex reached for my hand under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Jane doesn't need to come from money or status. She's accomplished in her own right. His mother's next move was entirely unexpected. In a sudden display of anger, she picked up her coffee cup and splashed its contents at me, staining my blouse. This is what we think of your accomplishments. I stood up, shocked and dripping with coffee. Alex was immediately at my side, his voice tinged with anger and disbelief. Mom, what the hell? I'm sorry, Jane. We're leaving right now, Alex said, his voice firm. As we walked out of the dining room, his mother's cold voice followed us. You're making a grave mistake, Alex. The drive back was quiet, the air filled with unspoken words and simmering anger. Alex kept apologizing, saying he should have never put me in that situation. It's not your fault, Alex, I reassured him, though inside, I felt a storm of emotions. I was angry, yes, but more than that, I was determined. Alex's parents had shown their true colors, and I wasn't going to let their archaic views of status and wealth define me or my relationship with Alex. After the distressing dinner with Alex's parents, I found myself sitting in my living room, still reeling from the events. The coffee stain on my blouse had dried, but the unpleasantness of the evening lingered. I knew there was only one person who could offer me the comfort and advice I needed, my mother. Picking up my phone, I dialed her number. As soon as she answered, I could hear the warmth in her voice, a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. Mom, it's Jane. I had the dinner with Alex's parents tonight, and it was a disaster, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Oh, sweetheart, what happened? Her concern was palpable, even through the phone. I took a deep breath and started recounting the evening in detail, from the moment we entered the opulent house, the condescending looks, the probing questions about my job, and the final humiliating incident with the coffee. As I spoke, my mother listened quietly, occasionally interjecting with a soft to show she was following. When I finished, there was a brief silence on her end. Jane, those people sound absolutely dreadful. I'm so sorry you had to go through that, she finally said, her voice laced with anger and sympathy. It was awful, Mom. They looked down on me the moment they saw my business card. They think I'm just an office employee, nothing more, I explained, feeling a lump form in my throat. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Do they know about your company? That you're not just an office employee? That your company's turnover is tens of millions of dollars? My mother's tone turned firm. Jane, you are a successful businesswoman, a self-made entrepreneur. You've worked hard to get where you are. Don't let their ignorance diminish your achievements. I sighed, leaning back on the couch. I know, Mom. But it's not just about me. It's about Alex too. I'm afraid this will put a strain on our relationship. Listen to me, Jane. If Alex truly loves you, he'll stand by you, regardless of his parents' opinions. And if he doesn't, then he's not worth it, she said, her words ringing with conviction. You're right, Mom. I shouldn't let them get to me. But part of me wants to show them who I really am, to prove them wrong, I admitted, feeling a flicker of defiance. And you will, in your own time and in your own way. Just remember, you're not doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself, she advised. We talked for a while longer, her words providing the comfort and reassurance I needed. By the time we ended the call, I felt a renewed sense of determination. Alex's parents might have their prejudices, but I wasn't going to let their narrow-mindedness dictate my life or my relationship with their son. I had faced challenges before and come out stronger. This was just another obstacle to overcome, and I was ready to face it head-on. The days following the dinner with Alex's parents were filled with a mix of reflection and determination. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being judged and underestimated. It was time to turn the tables, but in a way that was subtle and smart. I decided to start by learning more about their company. Sitting at my desk the next day, I called in my assistant, Sarah. Sarah, I need some research done, I began, my tone serious. Of course, Jane. What do you need? She asked, ready with her notepad. It's about a company owned by my boyfriend's parents. I need a detailed report on its financial health, assets, liabilities, everything, I instructed, handing her a piece of paper with the company's name. Sarah looked up, a hint of surprise in her eyes. Got it. I'll get on it right away. As Sarah got to work, I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing with possibilities. If their company was in as bad a shape as I suspected, there might be an opportunity to make a move, one that would put me in a position of power. A couple of days later, Sarah came back with the report. Her findings confirmed my suspicions. Alex's parents' company was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. They had been masking their financial troubles with a facade of wealth. Looks like they'd been living beyond their means, I mused, scanning the report. Do you want to proceed with any actions? Sarah asked, watching me closely. Yes, start acquiring their debt. I want to gain control of their company, I said, a plan forming in my mind. Over the next few weeks, I worked meticulously, using my resources and connections to discreetly buy up the company's debt. As I gained more control, I could feel the gears of change turning. Finally, the day came when I had acquired enough to call a shareholders' meeting. I would confront Alex's parents on my terms, in a setting where they couldn't dismiss me as just an office employee. As I prepared for the meeting, I thought about what I would say, how I would reveal my identity. I wanted them to understand that underestimating someone based on their job title was a mistake, one that they were about to learn the hard way. Weeks of meticulous planning and maneuvering had led to this moment. As I sat in my office, finalizing the preparations for the upcoming shareholders meeting, I felt a mix of anticipation and resolve. It was time to reveal the true extent of my influence over Alex's parents' company. The morning of the meeting, I arrived at the company's headquarters, a sleek building that exuded corporate power. Walking through the halls, I could feel the curious glances of the employees. In the boardroom, shareholders and key personnel were gathered, the air thick with tension and expectation. As I entered the room, I spotted Alex's parents among the attendees. Their expressions shifted from surprise to disbelief as they saw me. I took my place at the head of the table, my heart beating steadily. Alex's father was the first to break the silence. What is the meaning of this? Why are you here, Jane? I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of everyone present. Good morning. As some of you may already know, I am now the majority shareholder of this company. Over the past few weeks, I have acquired significant portions of its debt, giving me controlling interest. Murmurs filled the room as the weight of my words settled in. Alex's mother looked at me, her face a mix of anger and disbelief. This is outrageous. You can't just waltz in here and take over. I remained calm, my voice steady. Actually, I can. And I have. The company was on the brink of bankruptcy, and my actions have saved it from collapse. Alex's father stood up, red-faced and furious. You have no right to do this. This is our company, our life's work. I understand this is difficult for you, I said, empathizing despite their previous treatment of me. But this company needed saving, and I was in a position to do so. My intention is to turn this company around, not to dismantle it. The room fell silent, the reality of the situation sinking in. I continued, effective immediately, there will be changes in leadership. We need fresh perspectives and strategies to steer this company back to profitability. Alex's father bristled at my words. And what about me? What is my role in all this? I met his gaze, my decision clear. I'm afraid your role as the director is no longer tenable. We need new leadership to move forward. The shock was evident on his face, a stark contrast to his usual confident demeanor. You can't do this to me. I built this company from the ground up. I respect what you've built, I replied, but it's time for a change. The company needs to evolve, and that starts with new leadership. As the meeting concluded, Alex's parents left the room in a daze, their world turned upside down. I watched them go, feeling a sense of closure. I hadn't sought revenge, but rather justice and a chance to right what was wrong. In the wake of the upheaval at the company, Alex's parents, consumed by their rage and humiliation, attempted to sow discord between Alex and me. They launched into a tirade of accusations and spiteful comments about me, trying to paint me as the villain in their fall from grace. But Alex, knowing the truth of their character and actions, remained unmoved by their efforts. One evening, Alex and I sat down in my living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light over us. It was time to clear the air and discuss everything that had transpired. Jane, my parents, they'd been trying to turn me against you. Saying all sorts of things about what you did, Alex began, his voice tinged with disappointment. I took his hand, looking into his eyes. I'm sorry, Alex. I never wanted to cause a rift between you and your family. Taking over the company was a tough decision, but I couldn't stand by and watch their arrogance and mistreatment of others. Alex squeezed my hand reassuringly. I don't blame you, Jane. I've seen their true colors. In fact, I've cut off all communication with them. They need to learn to live in the real world, not the one they've fabricated. The air felt lighter as a burden lifted off my shoulders. There's something else I need to apologize for, I added, pausing for a moment. I should have told you earlier that I'm not just an office employee. I'm actually the head of a large company. Alex smiled gently, his eyes full of understanding. I figured there was more to you than you let on. And I get why you kept it a secret. It doesn't change how I feel about you, Jane. His acceptance and understanding were all I needed to hear. We decided to move forward, leaving the past behind. Our wedding was a simple affair, attended only by our closest friends and family. It was a day filled with genuine joy and love, a stark contrast to the pretentious and superficial world Alex's parents inhabited. As for Alex's parents, their fall from grace was swift and complete. Their former friends and social circle, once drawn to their wealth and status, now shunned them. They found themselves on the other side of the judgment and exclusion they had so freely doled out to others. It was a bitter irony that they were now outcasts in the very society they had once ruled. In the quiet moments of our new life together, Alex and I often reflected on the journey that brought us here. We had weathered the storm of prejudice and emerged stronger. Our love was not built on status or material wealth, but on mutual respect, understanding, and a shared vision of the future.